Testing 1, 2.
I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 22, Episode 12 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
I'm
Oh, you're old.
old. I'm old. And that's Kurt.
And I'm Kurt.
You stole his line.
I did.
Hi. We have a convention in 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
today.
August 31st, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at the LAX Hilton Hotel, strategicon.net. If you want information on that, you're going to be running Wild Talents?
I'm running Wild Talents on Saturday morning. Grr.
Sorry.
Kimmy's favorite system. No, I should have. You guys too.
No, because I keep trying to run the game that she can then play in,
Yeah.
because she keeps complaining about never being able to play in a Wild Talents game.
Yeah. I've run it a million times and I've never actually played in it, ever. So
But
someday.
she can't play in my game this time because...
Oh, yeah, because I registered a game by accident at the same exact time. So I'm running my game.
Register a game by accident.
It's Kimmy. I don't
It's the
doubt
last
it.
minute.
Accidentally
A
registered
total
a game.
talent of mine. Yes. So I will actually be running Demigods at
That's cool.
9 a.m. or
I'd love to play in that. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait. So I'm excited. That'll be like my 4th or 5th time running it. So after Jason, I am the most experienced Demigods GM there is at
right.
the moment.
That is the next system I think I want to run.
It's very fun.
Demigods.
I had a blast when Kimmy ran the one-shot. It was
a lot of fun.
It was a lot.
That whole system's a lot of fun. It's very American Gods. It's very well. It is what you make it. But
Right.
Yeah.
it's Jason has spent, and there's a joy to it for sure. I mean, and he really loves his religions. He really, it's really worth checking out. He's done a very good job.
I think the whole pantheon of science is one of the
Yeah.
most original,
Yeah.
most amazing ideas to hit tabletop gaming in at least a decade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bold
enti-
statement.
It is.
An entire pantheon that
Hates the fact that they exist.
right, resents their existence.
Resents their entire existence, and they don't. And they have priests.
It's very Douglas Adams.
Yes,
It is.
very Douglas Adams. This is true.
I want a whole table full of those people, and they just sit around arguing whether they exist or not.
Right. In this episode of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast, Zach from Baltimore writes in about great World War II movies.
Would it be? I think, therefore, I am not.
I have proof that I don't exist. Written down.
Sorry.
He writes in about great World War II movies and asks an RPG character question. Kurt asks if he's designing himself out of gaming.
Not me.
Different Kurt.
Different Kurt. Other Kurt.
Well, there's more than one.
A lot of
There's
Kurt's
several,
in gaming.
actually.
A lot of Kurt's in gaming. And Steve from SoCal writes in to revisit space combat.
Space combat.
But first,
Pigs in space.
the first thing I want to say is, if you were listening to this show and you like actual plays, you should subscribe to our actual play feed.
Do it.
You can find it on iTunes and all the other podcatchers. It's called Happy Jack's RPG Actual Play. and in the next couple weeks, we're going to add a second feed.
A third feed.
A second AP feed, a third feed in general. Because we're going to put the one-shot shows on their own feed, because the feed's
That makes sense.
very full.
Yeah.
And
I blame Kimmy.
It's my fault. It's 100%
it,
my fault.
it
I'll
is your
take
fault.
Yeah.
So that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be talking about that when that happens.
Yeah.
But before we go to the emails, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We're on all of the social medias, every one of them. So
We're on
don't try to steal any of our usernames, which is happyjacksrpg on all of those things. We've got all of them. So don't even look to see if any are available.
Friendster? 6 degrees?
Tribe,
I know I registered at alcoholics.com.
LiveJournal.
We're not, no.
We're not on LiveJournal.
Not
We're
on
not on
LiveJournal?
LiveJournal? LiveJournal's huge. Why not?
We probably were.
No, I don't think we ever were.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I don't know. I think MySpace was dead by the time we started the show, or it was on its way up.
It was on
I don't
its
think there
way
was a Happy Jacks MySpace page.
I actually want to put out a plea to come back to the forums.
Oh yeah, we have forums.
We have
Forums
a
are
forum.
actually really, really helpful.
And the forum really is, and it's actually a very gentle, nice place to be, and it's full of information. But go. It's not like other places' forums.
it's
not
not like 4chan.
No.
There are no flame wars ever.
Well, only a handful. But you know what? Compared to most forums,
Yeah.
very tame.
Yes.
There's also places that are very comfortable, and like there are some places
Yes.
that tend to get a little heated, but you can choose not to be.
Yes.
Right. And
yeah.
Stalin is the moderator. So
Yeah,
No.
Uncle Stu.
Stu,
Uncle Stu.
Admiral Stu.
Admiral
a Photoshop picture of Stalin
Does
with
it?
me for the
Oh,
head.
gotcha. Okay,
Yeah, it's
that
very
makes more
funny.
sense.
And if you want to watch the show live,
Yeah.
you can go to happyjacks.org/live. We record the show and stream it out live on Twitch. Right now, just Twitch, because YouTube.
It's on happyjacks.org/live.
Happyjacks.org/live.
It's not our fault.
7 p.m. Pacific time. No, it's YouTube's fault.
Yeah.
7 p.m. Pacific time on Friday evenings.
Yes. We're also having a contest.
Contest.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh,
We are.
yeah. Go.
So we right now have 67 reviews on our AP feed, on the actual play feed on iTunes. We have these amazing dice trays from Easy Roller Dice that have lids and these cool symbols on the top. And these ones.
Ooh.
They're very pretty ones.
It has Trogdor.
For those listening at home, it's octagonal and it's made from genuine faux leatherette.
Yes.
Naga hide, I
Rich
believe. Actual
Corinthian
Nagas.
leather.
Actual Nagas that were killed and skinned.
No
to,
Nagas
make
were harmed
these-
in the production of these.
Locally sourced, free-range Nagas.
Yes.
It's still only Nagas are only found in World of Warcraft. Still like around the Goblin
There's a
Harbor
ton
City.
of them all over.
Oh, they're
all
everywhere.
over.
Yeah.
and-
And they have cool symbols on them.
Yeah.
Snake men.
This one has a dragon,
Mule men
but
more.
we have Easy Roll of Dice very kindly sent me a stack of these things.
Yeah.
I've got like
Cool.
6 or 8 of them or something.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
I
gonna-
like them.
And they're cool because when you open them, they also have like there's like an inner ring for you to roll in, and then like the outer ring for you to
To
actually
store
store
the
your
dice.
dice.
called the staging area.
Staging area. That's nice. That's fancy.
Yeah,
Anyway, so when we get to 100, did we say 100?
100.
Yeah, when we get to 100 reviews on
the
the
AP
AP feed, which we're at 67 right now, when we get to 100, we will do a giveaway. And yeah,
It's not positive reviews. It's just a review.
We would prefer them to
don't
be
be an
positive
asshole and
reviews.
point that out, Stork.
Some of the funniest reviews are
No.
the people who put a 1-star
No,
review
don't do that.
and say,
Why?
This is awesome.
I like this show, but there's enough burps, but not enough farts.
No,
Just
Why
need
do
to
I-
just need to have
what am I doing?
Dave and I on
But it's
more
only
often.
like 1 in 100 people that do that, which doesn't hurt our rating at all.
We don't have 100 people yet.
No, I'm talking about on the regular feed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, don't leave bad reviews. If you really have a thing you don't like, then don't listen.
My personal favorite is like the 1-star reviews on the John Oliver book that were like the 1-star review to look at for the haters will look up the 1-star reviews like this is an awesome book, it's amazing, it's I posted this just for the haters to be able to read it.
Right.
I want our AP review to be like the Three Wolves
Right. Oh, yeah.
with this ongoing
Well, I
story.
put a
upon
1-star.
me.
I put a 1-star review for
Oh,
the Three
the
Wolves
Three
being
Wolf
at the
Moon
moon.
shirt?
Yeah.
I said, this shirt is a scam. My son was also born without bones, and I put the shirt on him, and he didn't grow bones.
What?
Because one of the first reviews of that shirt was its magical properties, because this guy said his son was born without bones, and he put the shirt on him, and he grew bones.
Kimmy,
I've lost hope. Yes, Kurt.
I had forgotten how much I have to pre-drink before coming on the show.
No, that's a thing.
You got to front load. You got to front load.
got
Trying
my-
the pump.
It's just like a show affair.
Yeah. my
man.
panicked run to the store a few minutes ago for wine. This was
Are you sure you got
unnecessary.
enough? I don't think you did.
The chat room's pointing out, Kimmy, you lost control of the show.
We haven't even
That
started
implies she ever had
Did you
any.
have it?
That's a good question.
All right. So actual play feed reviews.
Yes.
And when we hit 100 of them, we're going to figure out some way to give away a an easy roller dice
Yeah.
dice tray with staging area.
Yeah,
And I gotta
absolutely.
say, our actual plays are actually very good.
They are amazingly good, except for that one Dark Ages vampire game. That one sucked.
No, I had a
It
lot
was
of fun.
fantastic. Oh man, especially anytime Stu uses his Scottish accent. Win.
That's a 5-star review.
Almost as good as his hillbilly
My
Mars
hillbilly?
son
Yeah.
Cletus.
You know what? If you don't know what we're talking about, go watch an AP.
Exactly.
All right.
All right. Yeah, I think we're plugging. That's all the plugging.
That is all of the plugins.
Oh, yeah,
For now.
no more holes open.
Okay,
Moving on.
I made it about myself. It's all good.
boys,
Sorry.
let's keep going.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I was instructed
Sorry.
to use my teacher
Inside voice.
Yes, Miss Kimmy.
My Australian accent is the best. Thank you, Sarah. All you have to do is talk really loud. And we just lost like 12 Australian
Right,
listeners.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
all our
that
Australian
you
listeners.
came to that from your retired British Army officer accent, right?
Actually, yes, you're right. Yes, I did. And I got that from Monty Python.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Great World War II movies and RPG character question from Zach in Baltimore.
Go for it, Stu.
Hey, you guys. Or, no, wait. There's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh no.
Hey, you guys.
That's from Electric
Exactly.
Company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
I don't get the
Kimmy,
reference.
don't leave me
Goonies.
hanging. Don't leave me hanging. That's totally Marita Moreno from Electric Company.
Or
No.
I never
Well,
watched-
yes.
yes, but
That's a second callback from Goonies.
yes,
I never
exactly.
watched Electric Company.
Neither did I.
No, but the guy in Goonies did, so that's why he said it like that all the time.
Exactly.
I never watched Electric Company. I maybe have seen one
The
episode.
great Rita Moreno.
Have you seen Goonies?
With Morgan Freeman.
In the theater,
Okay.
Because he's old.
but not since. And I don't
Okay.
remember anything about it.
Or this is a thing we'll fix.
A ship in a cave and.
It is, yeah.
One-eyed
I remember
Willie.
that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember there being a cave.
and
I just found it
It's actually
hysterical
not
that
very PC.
I just found it hysterical that Josh Brolin last year dressed up as himself from the Goonies for Halloween.
Was he one of the kids?
Yeah, he was the older brother.
I don't think I knew that. I don't think I knew that.
Oh, it's yeah.
I write to you with a movie recommendation and a question about complex characters that might not seem to fit in RPGs. In Season 22, Episode 7, Good Times, you were discussing World War II movies, and in talking about Dunkirk, yes, it's so good, Stu said that there aren't many good recent World War II movies coming out. I wanted to point out that the movie Hacksaw Ridge has as being a phenomenal recent World War II movie. Hacksaw Ridge is based on a true story and is directed by Mel Gibson. I know, I just watched. No, I've seen it. I've watched it a couple of times. There's another Vietnam era film that Mel Gibson stars in.
We Were Soldiers.
We Were Soldiers. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing film.
That one is almost as gruesome to watch, almost as viscerally to watch as The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's such a good film.
I'm not saying that as a compliment.
Hamburger Hill is a good Vietnam movie too.
Yeah. But it's about like the first
First, Air Cavalry.
air cavalry unit
The
using
Huey
jumping in
helicopters before
right.
they had armored them.
Right.
Wow.
I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to watch it again tonight. Anyway, Stu said there aren't many good recent World War II movies. I wanted to point out that Hacksaw Ridge. Blah, blah, blah. Hacksaw Ridge is based on a true story and directed by Mel Gibson. I know what you're thinking. Based on a true story, my ass. And you're partially correct. Gibson was worried that people wouldn't believe some of the things that happened in the true story of Desmond Dawes and left them out to make the movie more believable. Dawes was a conscientious objector who enlisted as a medic to keep this email from being too long. Dawes might be the most badass soldier of all time, and he never fired a bullet, and he never took a life, but he single-handedly saved 75 fellow soldiers. He is the first conscientious objector to earn the Medal of Honor. Hacksaw Ridge is one of my favorite World War II movies of all time. I will definitely put that on my list.
No, it got a lot of reviews, and it's not an easy watch though. It's
Right.
rough. It's rough.
I bet.
It's pretty much the nerd kid getting
Well-
bullied the entire time. Until
Well, it's
the
like
Yeah, but institutionally bullied.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Code
like
Red every day.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
First
I
20
mean,
minutes, yeah.
I mean, oh my God, yeah. The way they shot the landing in France, it's
Yeah.
like Wow.
Yeah.
So
That is hard to watch.
in 1963, when they did The Longest Day, which is, of course, the movie that everybody compared Saving Private Ryan
Right.
to.
Up until then, it was the most realistic.
Yeah, well,
version.
I mean, so that one, they could have done that in color. Because, I mean, the movie obviously existed in color in 1963.
Sure.
But all they had was Technicolor. And so the director said, no, the blood's too red, the sky's too blue, the sea's too green, the
Looks too
sand's too
cartoony.
white.
It looks too
Right?
nice.
It looks too... No, it's not that it looks too nice. It just looks too
Hollywood.
comic book.
Oh,
Sure.
It was just too pure colors. There was not enough gradient. There wasn't enough dirtiness to it. So that's why they chose to shoot it in black and white. Jump forward 40 years, and color technology is a hell of a lot better. And we get Saving Private Ryan, where they intentionally desaturated
yeah.
everything.
mute the
Yeah.
colors. Yeah.
Mute the colors, which is why every other war movie since then has been a desaturated color palette. Also, Ryan, but
And DC films.
well, same thing.
We don't speak of those.
But yeah, so now we get to see this guy's head or face blown off in color.
Right.
Well, that's so much.
You know, I watched, they have I think they call it the ultimate cut or something like that of The Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
They put back in the Black Freighter stuff.
Well, because they had released that as a separate
As a
film,
separate-
basically.
So
yeah.
he interspersed it, and there's a lot of extra footage with the kid reading the comic book and the guy at the newsstand.
That's cool. I need to see that.
But I love that movie.
There's actually a series on Biography, I think, or one of those channels, Discovery maybe. It's a World War II in color where they've gone through and
Yeah.
added color and everything.
It's on Netflix too. Yeah.
And what you're saying there is it's remarkable. It's like I'm used to seeing the South Pacific World War II sort of in black and white and stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you think these guys are struggling, it's rough, and they've got their shirts off and it's hot. And then they colorize it, and you're like, oh my God, here they are in paradise, and yet the lagoon is full of blood.
Yep.
And people are like wrapped in bandages, and it really adds another element. It's
full dimension now.
I was going to say, in answer to your question about World War II stuff. There's this stuff now that they're colorizing, so you can actually see legitimate footage from World War II in color, and it's jarring.
It makes it seem real. It doesn't look like you're
Well,
watching it. Well, it doesn't look like, because it seems like you're watching a newsreel
Yeah,
when it's in black and white.
and they've
Yeah.
colorized it.
And I know it's real, obviously, but
it really does add another level.
right.
You know,
I think it makes more of a
realism.
connection with it.
It
Yeah.
truly does. Because in black and white, I can just it's now it's
You can
art, it's a
separate
thing.
yourself from
yeah,
it. Yeah.
completely.
One other war thing, if you're a Dan Carlin listener, if you listen to Hardcore History, Countdown to Armageddon, which is his, I think,
World War I, five
five-part
episodes,
series about World War I. It is the oldest stuff in his podcast feed right now,
Yeah.
which means it's going to go away and go behind a paywall.
That's right,
So
yeah.
if you have not had a chance to listen to it, it's long. It's probably, 3 hours each episode? 2.5,
something like that,
maybe?
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
long. So it's probably somewhere between 10 to 15 hours of Dan Carlin talking about World War I.
Wow.
Grab it while you can, because it's going to go behind a paywall.
I love that phrase. It's
Yeah.
Stu, the journalist major here. It's going to go behind a paywall. It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
ominous and
Well,
accurate.
that's how
awesome.
that's how he pays.
yeah,
That's
sure,
how he-
sure. I know.
he
It's
makes
just
a living.
the fact you said.
And I don't
It's
begrudge
not,
him for doing
it's
it.
not that
No.
I'm going to charge pay. What you say. It's,
I'm sorry. Blueprint to Armageddon. It's called
Blueprint to Armageddon. Yeah, it's listening to that was what inspired me to run the World War I game that I ran starting in 2014.
Okay.
Starting 100 years after
Right.
the
The-
thing
the
started.
start-
And at a certain point, we actually coincided with the events 100 years before,
Right.
like date wise.
It's so good. It is so good. Dan Carlin is
He's a really good storyteller. Yeah,
he's a fantastic storyteller, and he makes even this sort of history that people are like, no. He draws you in, and he finds those little human elements in it that just really turns it from reading a dry history book into a full-blooded story.
and this reminds me that reminded me. I think you were a fan of it. After Saving Private Ryan came out, wasn't there a miniseries sort
Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers.
There's
that-
two actually,
And then
Yeah,
the Pacific.
and the Pacific.
that I
Both
thought you were
amazing.
a huge fan of.
I am. In
Also
fact, just
same.
recently watched those in the last month.
What we need actually is more World War I movies.
Yes.
There are a lot of European, because we were in it for about 18 months out
Right.
of the 4.5 years. But the only World War I movies that I can think of that I've actually seen.
Other than Wonder Woman.
I was going to say Wonder Woman,
Right.
actually.
That's not a World War I movie, though.
And All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
Is
I
like
saw
the big one.
the remake with John Boy.
Wings.
With who?
John Boy. Is it all caught on the Western Front?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I saw. Yeah, with Ernest
John Boy.
Borgnine and
And Wings. Wasn't that one? Wasn't that in World War I with the stop with camels flying around?
Oh,
It was
yeah,
a whole
yeah.
dogfight thing.
yeah. Cabbage Crate's coming over to Briny.
That
Right.
was it.
All right.
Savage Stalker in the chat room also says that the whole blueprint to Armageddon is also up on YouTube.
Oh, it is? Okay. All right.
That's
Nice. But wait, there's more.
There's more to this email.
Finally, I want to get to the actual point of my email. Aside from promoting the movie that everyone should see, what are everyone's thoughts on a character who is a pacifist in a high-violence game? D&D monk that trips his enemies and moves away from them, wizards who take no offensive magic and refuse to fight. How would you handle a player asking to play a pacifist character in a game that would be combat focused? How would you handle the player wanting to make a character like Desmond Dawes? What are your thoughts? Drink and discuss. That was the first PS. Second PS. I plan on writing in with some horror stories about a particular player I had in my D&D group that was notoriously bad, annoying, and made a lot of people in the group feel uncomfortable with his presence, but somehow always avoided crossing the line and getting kicked out. I plan on calling it The Saga of Fumbles and the Fail Ninja.
I'm sitting right here.
Fumbles the fail
I'm
ninja.
sitting right
Right.
here. What?
I like the title. Though.
Yes. Thank you, Zach from Baltimore. Pacifist characters in a combat.
So we had a pacifist in our actual play here on the Pirates of the Spanish Main. That Mary was playing a pacifist character, and she would go out there and on deck during battles and basically taunt the other side or boost the morale of her side.
Well, Savage Worlds actually gives you mechanics.
Yes.
So characters who are pacifists and don't want to do combat stuff have a lot of stuff they can do in combat.
Right, exactly.
They
And
actually-
now in the D&D game that she and I are in, she's playing a bard, and I don't think she's cast any spell other than Vicious Mockery in months. And she oh no, I'm sorry, it's Vicious Mockery and Charm Person. Because she just turns half the enemies into friends.
Right.
So,
Which is more effective than trying to cut them up with a sword. one by
exactly.
one.
So
Clearly.
my
One by
sorcerer
one.
does the same thing, and so like between the two of us, we've converted 3/4 of the enemy pool into friends of ours, and the GM is just, okay, all right.
And that's really the interesting point. Is like everybody expects a sword and sorcery game to go with a lot of hacking
Swords and
and
sorcery.
slaying and swords and sorcery, right? And then when people actually like, what if we just talk it out?
Yeah.
The GM doesn't know what to do. The min-maxer doesn't know what to do now. It is an interesting thing. I've actually played a couple of online role-playing games too, where it's like, can I do this without killing the big bad? How do I? Is there a way to win the game without actually doing it? And some of the, not necessarily online games, but some of the role-playing games allow you to do that. But I have found, by and large, that everybody at the table has an agenda, and if you don't warn them that you're going to be the pacifist, you might really be undermining their fun.
Well, that goes back to group character creation is really helpful in that
does.
kind of a thing.
Or at least communication.
Communication is always a good thing. Yeah. Just in general.
Well, and finding a way to still be helpful. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to be a pacifist who then sits on the ground whenever there's a combat happening and not help in any way, that's kind of
Right.
lame. Especially if you have been front-loaded with the information by the GM, hey, there's going to be a lot of combat in this
Right,
game.
right.
And you are like, no, I'm going to get all the attention. I'm going to be the character who
right.
doesn't do anything. I'm going to sit there and pout every combat and not
That-
help. It's like, all right, find a way to help. Like, be support, like, be a healer.
Yeah.
Like Mary, it sounds like she's still playing an active role in the
absolutely.
combat,
She's-
even if she's not hitting people.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Although I do fear for when she actually brings her weapon to bear because, of course, as a bard, her weapon is a musical instrument.
Right.
And the musical instrument that she chose is bagpipes.
Nice.
So...
In the hands of an expert, bagpipes can be used as a weapon.
Bagpipes are not a pacifist's weapon.
Clearly.
This is my argument as well.
They were created to be heard over the din of dying Scotsmen.
do-
Now, if you've ever heard dying Scotsmen, there's nothing louder. The only thing louder than that are bagpipes.
You know why bagpipers walk when they play.
I have no idea why.
Well, either they're trying to get away from the sound, or it's harder to hit a moving target.
You heard it here. All you Magpie players, address your emails to Kurt.
Oh, Stork? One before we continue.
Uh-oh.
One very quick. Did you hear there was a musician's joke on Facebook? So I know you probably haven't seen it. Did I tell it to you yesterday?
I don't think so.
Okay. How can you tell if a friend of yours has perfect pitch?
Oh, I don't know, Stu. How can you tell if a friend of mine has perfect pitch?
Don't worry about it. They'll fucking tell you.
That was my first guess. They're soprano, and they'll tell you. That was going to be my answer.
And if you've ever been in a choir
my
with someone who has
God.
perfect pitch, you're probably laughing.
Or thinks
Or
they
thinks
have.
they have.
Or
Yeah.
or thinks they have. Yeah, exactly.
Which is more often the case. It's
Yeah.
like, what you have to do is like, dude, you have relative pitch. You're not a perfect pitch.
Yeah. I think.
So no, let me ask.
Okay.
Because there's different kinds of pacifism. See, in GURPS,
Yes.
depending on which flavor of pacifism you take, you have to
Oh, boy.
you get a certain bonus in XP, right?
Savage Worlds, she took that pacifism flaw.
Yeah.
Right.
Hindrance, sorry, they call it.
Hindrance.
Savage Worlds. She took there's the
There's
two
a couple,
levels,
right.
and she took the more stringent level
Right.
to get the extra points
There's
for it.
like cannot kill.
Right.
There's self-defense only.
Right.
Someone who has self-defense only may not actively take part in a combat.
You could be a
Right.
total
They may-
judo master.
And they are only if someone is actually physically attacking them would they feel the need to intercede.
Right.
Then there's also like real pacifists where I don't harm people. It's just I just won't do it.
Yeah.
And I personally think if everyone at the table is prepped for that and everyone at the table knows, okay, there's a pacifist character in the game,
That's the point.
Yeah.
I think you could have a really compelling game with plenty of combats and still and have a lot of drama happen afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of inner party conflict. If that's the kind of game you like, I do. And so I think it's a good opportunity
Yeah.
to actually add a new dimension to the game rather than just have a bunch of murder hobos.
And I also think that if you're, as the GM, if your person wants to be a pacifist, you need to head it off at the pass, which is you're not just sitting down in the middle of combat and pouting. You need to have something that you contribute. So I remember watching.
I disagree.
I remember. Well, okay,
disagree.
hold
I
on.
disagree.
Let me give you this thought there, and then you can disagree. But I remember years ago watching a special on a judo master, and judo, I think specifically, correct me if I'm wrong, is about using your enemy's momentum and force against them. So these,
That's
somebody
a
would swing
big
them,
element of
and
it,
then
yeah.
they would literally grab him by the wrist, and the guy would then walk away and dust off his robes, and the guy would and down again. I would love to see a game with like a judo master monk, where all the fighters go through and it's like I've killed 5, I've killed 3, and then there's this pile of unconscious bodies here with the monk just sitting there on top of them, or going,
I've seen
they
anime
came
like
at
that.
me.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen anime like that. But-
It's possible to do that and still not kill them and still not ask for the fight.
Right.
Well, I think that's kind of what Stu's getting to. There's like different types of pacifists.
Yeah.
Like there's the ones who will defend themselves. There's ones
Right.
who won't even defend themselves if they have if
Sure. Right.
instigated. And you're absolutely right. I don't think like depending on the game, like yes, you can have that role to play. You can help, but if you've prepped your table, like yeah, you can still play that pacifist who's like I am not taking part in combat at all.
Right.
I will not heal. I will not. But make sure you've had that conversation and
Yes.
made that clear ahead of time. Don't wait till don't think it's going to be a cool twist of your character and wait until they're half dead in the first combat and then be like, oh, by the way, I'm a pacifist. I'm going to sit here and meditate while you all die. Like,
Not cool.
That's a dick move.
Not cool.
Players should know going in. The characters
Right.
may not know.
Yeah.
Characters don't have to
Oh,
know.
Players should know
absolutely.
going in.
Right.
Yeah.
I think. And there's also the possibility that you're going to have someone who's a pacifist who's the Shepherd Book character from
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Firefly,
From Firefly. Yeah.
who you kind of get the impression wasn't always a pacifist. But
The
Really?
Bible seems to be
You got
very
that impression?
very specific on killing people. Yes, it's much more vague, however, on the subject of kneecaps.
that's right. That's right. But
And like some systems have it built in, like the Asahina in L5R are pacifists.
Sure.
So like a lot of games that have kind of political machinations have like groups like that already built in that you can tap into if you wanted to play that type of character.
right.
Even Vampire has pacifist
Yeah.
bloodline, as it were.
Right.
Where-
But one of the things I think you need to be ready for in those situations, and all the players kind of need to be on the same page for it, is if you have a character who is a pacifist, and let's say he's a priest or he's otherwise eloquent in some way, he may talk you out of a lot of fights.
Yeah.
He may wait. No, let's figure out what they want,
Yeah.
and let's see if we can come to some sort of resolution where they can get what they want, we can get what we want, and we can walk away from this and no one gets hurt.
Yeah.
Which is mostly what people want in the world.
Right.
People don't just immediately like
Except assholes.
run into a group of people and just assault them.
Right.
Unless you're a Viking, maybe.
Murder hobos.
Right.
But I think, I mean, there again, everyone's got to be on the same page, because especially if you're playing a game like D&D where, if the GM's going to be a hard ass and say to beat an encounter you have to kill the monsters.
Right. In order to get XP.
There's going to be some tension at that table. So you
Yeah.
either have to say, okay, however you get out of the encounter, you're going to get the XP, whether you talk your way out or fight your way out, whatever. And just make sure everyone's on the same page, and everyone the key thing with it, I think, is going to be expectations.
Yeah.
And make sure everyone kind of is on the same page and knows where things are going to go.
We used to have the T-shirt. Stop talking. My experience point.
Please stop talking to my experience.
Yes, I still have that shirt.
I have several.
Our GM has actually been doing a really good job of rolling. I mean, he hasn't played or run D&D since 2nd edition, and he launched in with 5th edition. And so he's still a little vague on some of the rules, but his ability to roll with the punches or complete lack of punches that we hand him is actually really good. So, yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else?
I always find it refreshing when people want to talk this stuff. When Dave and I ran Mission Imbartable,
Right.
the whole idea was just like the original Mission Impossible television series, which is supposed to be in and out and no one knows you're there.
Right.
So basically, if you kill somebody and leave their body in a stairwell, they're going to know you're there. Alarms go off. So you've lost. The whole thing is about talking and not killing anybody, finding alternate avenues. And I think every player at the table had a great time. The tension was there. It was all, but it was set up ahead of time. It was front loaded with, this is your mission. You choose to accept it. But you're ghosts. You're in and you're out, and nobody should know you're ever there.
Right.
This should never have happened, and we will deny all responsibility.
It's leverage without Elliot.
But yes, but it can be a really interesting game if you let that happen.
Yeah.
If your murder hobos get all weird, I can't do anything. It's like, take a deep breath, everybody relax. There's a lot of things that we can all do to make, and it can still be fun and rewarding.
Instead of a tape recorder, did you have a magic mouth?
It was a crow.
Okay, right.
Because they can
Have a
talk.
magic. Remember the magic mouth
Yeah.
from first edition?
Yeah.
I don't know. Did that exist in second?
I always use
know
them
what
in
I'm talking
traps. I use them in traps.
It-
They
I
would
know-
tell you riddles.
I know it exists as a spell in 5th edition,
Oh, it
but
does, okay.
I'm not familiar enough with 2nd or 3rd to...
Okay.
And I've tried to put up mental blocks about 4th.
Right.
So,
It's probably always been there.
yeah.
All right. Anything else? Anything else? Going once? Going twice? So American.
Do the thing, but communicate. There.
Yes.
Yeah.
Designing my way out of gaming from Kurt. Kurt!
Yes. Oh, should I read the other Kurt's?
You have to. That's why we brought you.
Oh, okay, all right.
Damn it, we got a Kurt
Are
email.
you
I need Kurt.
sure you didn't write this? Are you gonna read
I'm
it because you
absolutely
didn't write
certain
it?
that I did not write this.
Okay.
Greetings, Happy Jacks.
Greeting, Jack.
There's this fantastic Irish band.
Dubious.
Thank you. Dubious provenance on this email. Greetings, Jack. Are we still doing douche jokes?
Sure.
If so, greetings, dusty boxes of unnecessary feminine hygiene product. I seek your guidance. Over the past year, I've become more and more engrossed in game design. I've written a few games which are in various states of completion. My Google Drive is filled with documents that say things like, make relationships more impactful. And what if the characters were ghosts trying to solve their own murder?
You're either writing a game or you're working as a relationship counselor.
Actually, I just made that last one up, but I think I could make it work.
No, totally.
Oh, that's a great idea for
That's a great idea for a game. Yeah, exactly. Now the problem. While exciting, all this careful examination of mechanics and iterating minute changes is turning my hobby into more of a job. It's been a while since I played a game for fun instead of as research, and I'm finding it difficult to let go and just play the game. Not to mention the guilty feeling when I play something other than my new game, which desperately needs more playtesting.
Yeah, I hear you.
I really enjoy the design process, but I'm afraid I'll lose the fun of just playing the game. I know several members of the cast have written games. How do you fight off burnout and keep from overanalyzing every game you play? Kurt Potts on the social meteor programs. P.S.
I'm opening up my social media program.
Exactly. Is that the Kerbal science? Never mind. P.S. If you're all right with a bit of self-promotion...
Oh, no! Go ahead.
Some friends and I recently started up a Twitch channel called Pixel Scandal.
Nice.
We stream a weekly nerdcast about gaming and other nerd culture, as well as actual plays and video games. You can find us at twitch.tv/pixelscandal. PPS, drink.
And Kurt Potts is a funny guy.
He's awesome.
And he's been
His son, Kurt Potts III, is also a funny guy.
Yes, he is. That kid is.
he's been with us since the beginning, I think. Kurt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
He's
his
local-ish.
wife. Yeah, I mean they're Fresno. Yeah.
Oh, you just told him that they don't know the first and last name in the city they live in. Oh, stalkers.
What have you
We'll edit
done?
that out.
You don't edit it.
Go ahead.
No, I enjoy seeing the pictures they post about because his wife is a fireworks pyrotechnician. Yes, right. So.
Yeah, I actually made a character, unbeknownst that I didn't know what she did for a living, and I made one of the. I ran a game called Mundane Justice, where everyone is like a real superhero,
Oh yeah,
like a normal person who's putting on stuff, like
The Shoveler.
Orlando Jones. No. Yes, Mystery Man type thing.
well, there's ones in like Oregon or Washington. There's a group of them up there
Yeah.
that go out and spray mace on people.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But one of them was a pyrotechnician who she just had a whole bunch
Phoenix
of
Jones or
fireworks.
something like that.
Oh, Phoenix, yeah, I think Phoenix Johnson's right. But she just had a bunch of fireworks. Just, I'm playing this.
Bottle rockets.
Right.
But because she was an actual pyrotechnician, she was like
She corrected the character, so.
much more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So
Burnout?
Burnout.
burnout from. Well, I'll tell you. The question I would ask you are: when you're playing games for research, is it really like a job? Or are you really not having fun doing it?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Because if you're still having fun doing it, but it's also kind of work because of the fact that you're like seeing how this mechanic works or trying this game out to see if there's any mechanics you want to include in this or things like that.
Yeah.
If you're still having fun doing it, I wouldn't worry about it because you're having fun.
It's a game. You're supposed to have fun.
And I mean, feeling guilty because you're playing a game and you're not working on what you're supposed to be working on, you got to take breaks. Especially if you've got a job and you're doing this part time.
Right. Well, yeah.
You got. I mean, look at
is supposed to be
how long it took me to get Moment of Truth out. I've been working on that thing for like. Well, Tappy and I were talking about it out here after a show before he moved to East Jesus.
So
Yeah.
8 years.
7 or 8 years
Yeah.
ago, we started talking about it, and I started writing it around the time that he ghosted to East
Yeah.
Jesus, and then I worked on it a little bit at a time. That whole time, ran a lot of play tests. It went through a lot of revisions of the rules, and it only just came out this last like June or something.
Yeah.
and it has not been out very long. And let me tell you, the Blood Blade and Tusk setting. It's not going to be this year. It may not be next year because it's right now that my page count is up around 300 pages
Wow.
because it's huge. And then I've got to go through and make sure shit's consistent.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just realized, oh,
You have actual history to contend with as well.
right. And then I realized, I should have a timeline.
Oops.
So now I have to go through
Oh, no.
all of the stuff I've done, and all the little
Yeah.
bit mentions of
Sure.
history stuff, and do a timeline from 1000 AD to 1200 AD.
Because, like I said, you have history. Because
Well,
what you're writing is
I'm resetting. History takes a left turn at 1100 when the
yes,
orcs
but
show
you
up.
still have to set up the stuff before
Yes.
that too.
Yeah.
and be beholden to it.
Carolingian Empire and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is. But if I wasn't having fun doing it, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
I mean, it's certainly not the money. I mean, moment of truth, I gave it away. I mean, there's like a pay what you want thing on Drive-Thru RPG.
Everybody wants to pay $20, right? Or more.
There's like, well, I didn't expect anything, but there's like $19 there or something. There's a few people who've kicked a little money in.
Okay.
But, I mean, you can also go to Moment of Truth RPG and just download it for free. And I just put a little revision in it. But, I mean, I don't work on the setting thing every day. I don't even work on it. I mean, I may go a couple weeks because I need a break.
Yeah.
There's no deadline.
You've got songs to write, too.
I mean,
you got a band to feed.
Right. And the thing is, I mean, unless you've got some kind of commitment, like, I don't know, you've done a Kickstarter,
Right.
Yeah.
and you're going to Gen Con rather than working
Some
on
kind
your
of
game.
deadline, yeah. You still mad about him?
That's completely not specific.
No.
No.
But if that's a little different because now you've made a commitment and you're sitting on people's money and you owe them something.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you're just working on your own,
Yeah.
do it when you want to, and when you don't want to, don't do it. Don't burn yourself out.
Yeah.
Why the hell would you do that?
I'm reading another thing into this, which is I can't speak necessarily for game design, although I tried to design games back in the day. But I can speak about the movie industry because now that I'm in the movie industry, I know how the sausage is made.
Right.
And no films are the same. They used to be just like total escapist, and now I'm like, oh my god, I see the wires and I can see the flaws and the tape behind and the bad, and I see all the flaws. But despite that, and maybe it just takes time, I have gotten to the point now where I just dismiss that and let the story take me away.
That's why. Remember when we both showed up in the same movie theater? What movie was that?
I don't know.
Don't you remember that? It was a few months ago. It was a couple months ago. Where I was like in line buying tickets, and you walked in.
He's old. He doesn't remember.
I don't remember. You don't remember.
Keep going.
I don't remember what movie it was, but
You remember
Oh, we didn't sit together.
I would not sit next
Right.
to you because of
But I don't want to be that guy. I don't do that
Right.
necessarily in a movie theater for sure. I do it at home
that, I believe.
where you can pause it and we can have
What
discussions
movie was
about it.
that?
But my point is that even though I now know how that stuff is made and I can see the wires, and Kimmy is the same experience because she's like been behind the scenes and stuff too, it doesn't necessarily detract from a great performance and from a great movie. If it's a good movie, it's well written, it's well executed. After the first 3 or 4 minutes, I don't really care. I'm caught up in the story.
Right.
I think that's different than burnout, though, on your own system.
Right.
Because I've experienced this a little bit with, like, when you write songs, things like that. At some point, you hit it, and you've heard it so many times you can no longer judge whether it's good or not.
Oh, no kidding.
You get
True
yeah,
that.
and you're like, I hate everything about the song. I want to burn it, but everyone else says it's good, so I'm going to trust them. So
Right.
it's you get to that point where, like, you just want to throw it in the garbage.
Oh, that's a very good point. You've
And-
lost all perspective.
Yeah, you just like and you know, creating anything, like I get that way with my costumes. Like there's always a point in every costume I make where it's like 2 a.m. and I'm crying and I'm just about to burn it.
Yeah.
Like I'm like looking at it.
mattress-
Yeah, like the trash can's there. It's like gonna just it'll be fine. I'll just burn everything. No one will know this ever happened. And I
wish I hadn't live streamed it.
yeah. I wish I hadn't been talking it up on Instagram for months. But super close to that with that Raven costume, by the way. Super fucking
Really?
close. Yeah, oh my God.
That
A
thing
couple
was
months
amazing.
ago.
It's amazing.
Well, it's
It
like-
does, but at 2 a.m, like the night before the event when you're trying to finish it desperately,
Your
and
blood
you've
sugar's
never put it
low
on.
and- yeah.
Right.
Yeah, everything.
But I mean, it's like when the Boggarts record CDs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For every minute or every hour that someone is in the booth,
You have to hear.
I'm in there.
Yeah.
So you take the other 12 members of the band, you add it all together. That's how many hours I spent in there.
Yep.
And then it's like
And then editing it.
I've heard every track. I've gone through and done all the auto-tune. Not that we would ever use auto-tune. And
Correction.
and then done all of the editing and all of the mixing. By the time I'm done, I've spent, God, I don't even know, 80 hours listening
At
to
least.
these same 15 songs over and
Yep.
over again.
And the
in
last
various
thing you want to
iterations.
do is hear that album. Ever.
I don't.
Again. Ever.
Once it comes back from the printer,
Yeah.
I don't listen to it at least for a year.
Oh, yeah, at least
I don't
2
even,
years.
Eris, I don't give a fuck. It's already printed. What am I going to do
What
about
am
it?
I-
I don't
yeah,
even
exactly.
listen to
Yeah.
it. someone says, "Oh, one of the songs has a little thing."
All right.
Should have got it earlier.
You will be dead. Please
Yeah,
stop talking
no.
to me.
Yeah. But I actually just put our
Stabby,
most recent
stabby.
CD in my CD player the other day, and I mean it's 3 years old now, and I was like, "Oh, I can now listen to this one without
Right?
minutely examining
Oh yeah,
it."
and I can see what he's talking about, because especially if
Yeah.
you're in the middle of coming up with game mechanics or designing some kind
exactly
of game,
what I'm saying.
and you're playing something, like within the overall genre of games, you're playing a role playing game or a board game or whatever. It's hard to turn off that
Right.
Yeah.
that part of your brain which is saying, "Oh, that's an interesting mechanic. I wondered." I did that with Moment of Truth. I mean, we'd play something. It's like, "Oh, I wonder if I should put in
Fiddling.
mechanics for this." And
Oh
I
my
should
God,
put it into
yeah.
Like, no, stop.
Yeah.
So I know what he's talking about. And I don't know how you shut off that part of your brain.
Well, as a musician, I mean, how do you do it?
You
And
don't.
I don't.
I also know that you've also said, I don't want to hear that song because it's going to get stuck in my head and I'm going to write it. So no, I don't want to hear
that
it.
used to happen a lot. Now I've gotten a lot better at recognizing when I'm writing someone else's song again.
Yeah.
Because I wrote "Stairway to Heaven" in like 1990,
This is a
1991.
famous story. You should tell the story just quickly.
I had
Well, yeah, he's
Bill.
good.
Bill and I had both started rock bands, like garage bands, because we both bands practiced in our garage, and I
Shared a
sat
garage.
down and was writing a song at the time. I was playing my Strat, and I wrote the song out and had the lyrics done and everything. I said, "Hey, Bill," and Bill, we were roommates. Bill comes home like, "Dude, you got to hear this song," and I start playing the song for him. I was like,
And Bill, to his credit, sat
and
down
listen to the
and
whole
listened
song,
to the whole song,
whole fucking song.
nodding along.
It's
He's
like,
an asshole.
"Do you realize you just wrote Stairway to Heaven with different lyrics?" I'm like, "Fuck, I did!" And I did.
Son
Chord
of a-
for chord. It was the same fucking chord progression.
Oh my God.
And I fucking hate Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But I think what Stork brought up about movies and being able to just sit down and enjoy the experience of the film and get that other stuff out of your mind, I think that's probably key. If you're playing, especially if you're playing role-playing games,
Yeah.
especially role-playing games, rather than looking at how the sausage was made, be in that moment and play that game. And if you see yourself starting to, if you want to jot down a note, "Oh, this is an interesting mechanic this person put in this game."
Right. That's the key.
Jot that note and then forget about it.
That's absolutely the key. I mean, I know Miles Davis would go out and watch and listen to music, and he didn't come up afterwards and give notes to anybody, or he
Right.
didn't. He can't not enjoy live music. All musicians, all artists can still enjoy the performance or the act of doing it without. There's a muscle almost where you just have to shut it off and go. It's not. I'm not taking notes. This is not my GM hat now. I'm actually here to play, or I'm actually here to watch, or I'm
Right.
actually here to enjoy this.
You know what? That's that interesting thing you just said there. You're almost, especially if you're playing. If you're GMing, that's different. But if you're playing and you're doing that, you're almost taking on the burden of a GM. You aren't, but because GMs don't have the same kind of fun when they're playing a role-playing game that players have.
Absolutely.
It's still fun. It's an enormous amount of fun.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of fun.
Yes.
It's not the, I'm rolling with the punches. There is some of that. But,
Or trying to figure out what the fuck's going on.
but you as the GM, you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I fit these pieces together? And there's more analysis going on in your head, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And so if you're a player,
For player, you're really trying to enhance your own experience. If you're GM, you're trying to enhance everybody's experience.
right? But there's a lot more of analysis going on with the GM in that sort of metagame sense than there is with the player. And I think it's almost like you're backseat GMing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not as
have that
dickish
problem
as
a lot.
actually backseat GMing.
But that is very
But it's
pertinent.
similar.
No.
It's a similar sort of phenomenon. Is that you're like, well, look how this game mechanic works. Da, 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 da.
Oh, yeah.
Now, obviously, when you're playtesting, you kind of have to do that.
Yes.
Because that's why you're playtesting.
Yeah.
Is to make sure that shit's working right, and if it's not, you're immediately. I mean, I did it a lot when when we were playing. We played a game. It was called Mobile Danger Force. I'm going to be running a session of it at
I
the
saw
con.
that. It actually sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, well,
I actually love the
think
name.
you-
Mobile Danger Force.
You may have been in the playtest of it. It was at Bill and Elsbeth's house, and it was a 1960s Super Spies I don't know if you were in that
don't think
game
I
or
was
not.
in that one or
But
not.
I know Ellsworth
Doesn't
was in
sound
it,
familiar.
and
I know
Bill
I
was in it.
wasn't, but I remember you talking. I remember seeing something about it.
But
yeah.
we were playing the game, and I had the old damage system in it, and someone we had sort of kind of come to the conclusion that the damage system wasn't working right, and pop right in my head while we're sitting there talking about it was the way the damage system works now, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
And I had to sit and write it down, or else I was going to
Right,
forget
right,
it.
right.
But I mean, that's why you play test.
Yeah.
I mean, you're play testing to make sure shit works, and if it doesn't, try to come up with something else. And if you figure that out at the table, you better fucking write it down.
Yeah. I have a bunch of notes on my phone. Actually, I have some really old ones from when I was in the Wives, too, because I'd be just walking around in the playground at recess or something, like watching the kids, and boom.
Oh, yeah.
A chorus would coming, and you have to write it down right
Oh,
now.
a song intro.
Yeah,
oh,
something.
When the muse speaks, you fucking listen.
Write it down.
That was the thing I had recently because I hesitate to say I wrote a song because I can't write a melody to save my life, but I had lyrics hit me while I was out on a walk with my wife, and I was like, hold on to it, hold on to it, hold on to it, don't talk to me, honey, hold on to it, hold on to it. And I got home, and I spent the next hour and a half writing down lyrics of a song that I had been trying to write for 8 years.
Right.
That's why your phone has a memo recorder.
Well, some people are visual, some people
Sorry.
are auditory.
I had to work it out in text.
I get it.
Oh,
no,
Because
I get it.
I needed to find, I had to work out the whole thing with like rhyme zone and thesaurus and, and things like that. But it was,
No, I
but
get
in 90 minutes I had a complete
Yeah,
song.
that's awesome.
Those are the best songs.
Oh,
Yeah.
When it's like,
Boom.
I'm going to sit down.
One that's going to be on our next album, Time Flies, I wrote in 4 hours. Yeah,
Nice.
at work.
I'll give you a tip on writing melodies.
Yeah.
Don't sing to write your melodies. Try using a musical instrument.
Yeah, that's problematic for me.
Everyone can play
He's
the
a
white
drummer.
Everyone can play the white keys on a piano.
I don't have a piano.
Everyone can play the white keys on a piano app on their phone.
Okay, fair enough.
But
And
seriously,
that is how I've written bad melodies. And I actually took 2 years of piano, so I can play more than just the but it was 37 years ago.
if I come up with a melody by just singing it,
Yeah.
it's way simpler and less interesting than if I sit down. And I'm a shit piano player, really bad,
Yeah.
terrible. I mean, I play piano like Stork types,
All caps.
all caps, with the hashtags at the end.
I have to say it's because you are predominantly left-handed. Like,
And that is not
it's a real hard problem with the
Yes,
piano player.
because your lyric hand is your right hand on the
That's
piano.
right.
So do you write usually more with a guitar or a zouk?
Either the zouk or
chord structure?
either zouk or piano.
Okay.
I mean, unless I've somehow come up with a good melody, like sometimes I'll come up with some lines that I like.
Yeah.
But if I'm writing a song and I'm like, all right, this song has like 4 notes in it, and it's like da 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 da, because there's so many melodies like that. I was listening to Tappy turned me on to him. V&V Nation.
Oh yeah.
That guy can't write a melody to
My
save his
roommate's
shit.
favorite band. Yeah.
But that guy can't write a melody. If you
Yeah.
listen, I'm going through. I don't know which seed it was, but like 3 of the 4 songs, it's the melody is da 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 da, and I'm like, wow, just take 5 minutes and figure out what other notes you can do besides the one you're
Right.
the whole
yeah.
melody
You're
is.
using.
Yeah.
See, my strategy is I email it to Elsbeth. So
Oh, there you
she
go.
then writes the music for me.
Yeah. See, that's what I do. Is I write out the lyrics, then I hand them to Jeremy, and I say, "Here."
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we came up with a name for our band, Elsbeth and I.
Oh, what's that?
Zones Apart.
That's awesome.
I'm in LA and she's in London, and
That's good.
we can
I
talk
like
to each
it.
other like 2 hours a day when we're both awake.
I like it. It's good. I like the name.
I want to touch briefly on burnout. I
You
don't
mean
know
the
what-
topic that we're supposed to be talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
right
yeah.
now?
We'll bring it
That
back
was
to that.
trying to be subtle there.
We
Sorry.
got the whole creative thing down, but burnout, man, I don't have a good answer for that. Which is, I mean, if you've
Pace
been spending
yourself.
every time pace yourself, or just maybe even take a break, and that seems trite,
That's what Stu said, yeah.
but it's also
I've
it's
mentioned-
important.
I've mentioned this before. It's been years probably since I've mentioned it. This podcast happened because I was having songwriter's block.
There you go.
And I'm like, I'm going to go find something else that's creative. So I started doing RPGs and started doing the podcast. And then started writing songs. The
For the podcast.
thing that I couldn't do,
Right.
I started writing songs for the podcast. And that kind of broke the song.
I remember, like, very first episode of the Angry Folk podcast,
Angry
the
Folk-
pre-
the Angry Folk
music and infantile comedy podcast.
show.
Yeah.
You made the comment, I write a shit ton of songs. I write so many songs, and so here's my way of,
Right.
and not all of them can be used by my band, and so this is your thing. And then
like 10% get used.
yeah, and then you got the burnout on the songwriting, so you went to gaming.
Right, exactly, yeah.
This actually brings up another thought that I was thinking of, and you brought it up recently. When you're learning a new instrument, there's a process. It's not fun.
No.
It's not easy.
No.
And you talked about hitting a wall
Oh, yeah.
and plateauing.
Oh, banjo. I took, it was
let's
5 years ago.
let's
Yeah.
unbox that.
I
a
hit
bit.
a wall. I hit a wall.
Now, what's that mean? I mean, is that just in instruments, or can it be with maybe, say, designing a game? You hit a wall. Because
Everything.
I think that at some point you get you get so buried, you're in the weeds. You get so frustrated with everything. Everything's a challenge. Nothing's fun anymore. And that wall, maybe self-imposed or just because of circumstances, you can't get past it.
Kind of. The thing is, the kind of wall you're talking about with creative stuff, I think, has more to do with the fact that I think you start to lose perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need to change
so
your
lost in the
surroundings.
weeds.
Set it on fire.
You know, it's like, yeah, well, not just that, but you need to go somewhere else and do something else and reset your brain.
Yeah. Go out in the backyard with Kurt the Third and play catch for a while.
Or just put it on the shelf for a year.
Yeah.
Well,
or a month.
Yeah.
Or get outside opinions. Like, that's the thing that saves me in that 11th hour with costumes, or the 14th hour, whatever, 2 in the
reason
morning.
you're alive.
Yeah, like I
The
take.
reason there's like
Yeah.
cinders in your backyard.
It's not a fire.
Right.
Someday it will happen. My husband will like walk back into in the morning. There'll just be this bonfire. He'll just be like, "I'm not."
He's going to walk out there and go, "Oh my God, she spontaneously combust."
No, he'll walk out
hot,
and
but-
just turn around and shut the door and just know it's not safe. He'll just wait.
It'll be the sobbing in the
Yeah, that's exactly this like
She'll put it out
baying
with
at
her
the moon.
tears.
But, you know, in those moments, like, I have my friends that I take pictures of it and send them to and be like, hey, and they're people I trust.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, yeah, I think maybe you should continue to tweak it. Or, no, that looks great. Stop fucking with it. Go to sleep.
Right.
You know, and have that. And I think part of the playtest process needs to be kind of giving it up a little, giving it, you know, having some other people run it and maybe giving you some feedback without you running or playing it.
Right.
So you have that outside perspective that you can then use to kind of invigorate yourself and make good choices with the time you spend.
That's something that's something I never got with Moment of Truth. No one else is. I mean, there have been people who ran it. I sent out a very early version of it, and a few people play tested it for me and sent me back their notes on it.
Yeah.
And those were incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have me there to help them. They didn't have me there to explain anything.
Yeah.
They had to use the book as they had it and go through and I got a lot of very early valuable feedback.
Yeah, and I know that Jason's been doing that with Demigods.
Right,
And because he ran it, and then I ran it, and then he launched the beta for people to download and try it.
Right.
And they have like a whole Google Plus, which is a thing, I guess, and like they chalk. I don't know. But he's been getting feedback, and that sort of reinvigorated him because he was at that point where he had kind of lost perspective on it.
Right.
Like he ran it for us, and he was so buried in it that he couldn't quite get.
I think mechanically he's done.
Well, yeah.
It's he just needs to fill in whatever the rest of the book is going to be.
Yeah, and he's finding.
And that's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah,
that's going to be actual work.
But you can say that from an outside point of view. I mean, he's still in the weeds. Just like all he sees is problems and mistakes and things and
well, a lot
possibilities.
of it, a lot of it at this point, like the mechanics he feels are done, but he has to tweak things he thought were clear from how he wrote it.
Right.
People are like, I have no idea what this means.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily mechanics, but more like how he explains things.
You've been trying to say something for the last 5
Oh,
minutes.
well, I mean, burnout is just one of those things everybody goes through it at a certain point. I mean, I quit my major in college because of creative burnout.
Really?
Yeah, I started in architecture school.
I
did 2 years in architecture school, and I just suffered total, complete creative burnout. I could not be that creative that long, 80 hours a week.
It's fine. You're being
kind of
replaced
thing.
by a machine now.
So I decided to do something simpler, and I went to engineering.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kurt. You can't make another building that's shaped like a cube.
Right?
Yeah.
I never actually tried that.
Pyramids are right.
I did make a cylinder once, but I didn't make cube.
Nice.
Oh, there's a big high-rise cylinder in Long Beach.
The Capitol
Yeah.
Records building.
The Capitol
Record,
that one as well.
yeah, it's classic.
There was a rest. I don't know
It's
what the rest
an
of
apartment complex in downtown Long Beach that's cylindrical.
and it has there's a restaurant at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was right
What is the
down.
name of that? I can't remember the name of that building. Anyway,
I don't know. I've never
I
been
lived
in
right
it.
down the street from it.
Space Combats from Steven SoCal. Can you hand me one of my shit beers?
Dear Happy Jacks, this email is in response to the email you read on 22/8,
Good times.
in which Harold asked, "Does space combat have to be boring?" My answer is yes. Most of the time, it will be.
And I think that's kind of the conclusion I came to.
Pretty much.
To understand why, we must understand some basics about, quote, combat scenarios and how players interact with them. Normally, combat scenarios assume that the participants are roughly equal in the way they are treated. Each can move and perform actions when it is their turn. This equates to making decisions about what to do next, what to do each turn. In space combat, though, participants are often not equal, which we'll get to next.
They're also stuck in one space. They have limited choices.
Maybe.
Many times, space combat is not composed of units which are each run by a single player. Instead, they are run collectively by multiple players. You might have a pilot, co-pilot, engineer, and gunners all aboard the same vessel. Thus, the players are not in normal combat where they all have interesting choices to make. Often, the pilot is the only one with interesting choices to make when it comes to moving and maneuvering. Everyone else has most of their choices already made for them. They will shoot, repair the ship, etc. Sure, they have choices about who to shoot first or what to prioritize in the repair queue, but the main thrust of their actions is dictated by their position on the vessel. What do you do becomes a trite question when we already know the answer. So, how do you inject choice back into space combat?
Yep.
The first thing you must do to get your space combats to be thrilling once more is ditch the idea of them as combat.
There you go.
When I choose to call it a scenario, it is not just word games. Space combat is what happens when you play FFG's X-Wing.
A board game.
Yeah.
Right.
The vessels are the units the players control, not the people inside them. RPGs are about the characters, though. So as such, you need to focus on them. Can you perform evasive maneuvers without knocking people off their feet or injuring them? A ship is not a static environment. Stop treating it as one. Remember to narrate. A pair of TIE fighters is screaming on your port side. What do you do? Jump around to different players, and don't be afraid to stick with one player for a few actions. Follow the action, not the turn order. Not everyone will be as involved, and that is fine. Different people lead the action in different scenes. This is normal and to be expected.
I mean, this actually brings up the thought of the Millennium Falcon is being chased by the TIE fighters. There's not a lot of maneuvering going on because if you do that, the gunners can't get a bead.
Oh, yeah.
So in many ways, it's like you're in combat. As a pilot, your job now is to keep it straight and narrow so the gunners can get a bead.
It's amazing. Star Wars, they invented computers so they could be androids, but they didn't invent computers for fire control systems.
Funny that.
Yeah.
Well. And gravity works differently there, too. So
Yeah.
you can literally hold a black
Well, it's
hole
like
in your
Vast
hand.
Dominion.
Let's not go there.
The truth is that my advice isn't just advice about space combat. It's about the whole game. Keep running scenarios and stop running miniature war games in the middle of your RPG sessions. While war games can be fun, it doesn't mean it should break up the action and flow of an otherwise good RPG. One of the reasons that PBTA is so popular is this very style of running a game. Try it. I'll bet you find your space scenarios are way more fun than the space combats you used to struggle with.
Yeah.
Steve from Southern California, but not Steve from SoCal.
I would contest that PBTA games are popular.
Okay. It doesn't undermine the fact. It doesn't undermine the mechanic.
We live in a microcosm.
Yeah, all right.
I think it's a microcosm of very vocal people, and I think if you were to compare the number of people who play PBTA games to the number of people playing D&D,
Well, yeah.
probably 1%.
Well, yeah.
I actually.
I think. Wait, just for a second. Right. I think. I agree. The actual ratios are 100%, but I think that if you compare the number of people who are exposed to D&D with the people who are exposed to BBTA and other systems, I think that would really change the ratio as well.
Possibly, yes. And they
Not just for PBTA, but like everything.
They're also more vocal. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Here's your club if you want to keep beating that horse. I was going to say this letter actually kind of sparked an interesting thing. I brought up the Millennium Falcon, and it's really, and even Firefly, it's an interesting thing, which is because so Wash tries to escape, and he's doing his dodgy thing, but when they finally are like have to get into combat, he has to level out and keep it straight. And now the gunners have a thing to do, and then everybody's on damage control. In many ways, let's say you're running Traveler, because that's what immediately comes to mind. In many ways, there should be some hand waving, I think, involved. You need to say to them what's going on. It's like, well, if you want to do invasive maneuvers, that's great, but your gunners are going to complain because they can't get a bead. And if you're flying straight, the engine room and everybody is going to be working overtime to patch holes. So it needs to be a broader narrative describing what's going on, rather than, all right, you roll, now you roll, now you roll, because that's when it breaks down into not fun. Yeah. What you want to do is keep the action going. You want to keep the narrative going. You want to keep the combat interesting, and not be bogged down in everybody roll now and see what it is you do, if you succeed or not. And we've always talked about that too, which is like, if you want them to succeed, if you want the ship to escape, don't make them roll. Don't get yourself in a bottleneck, which is, oh my God, they've all failed and the ship's going to blow up.
Right.
I'm gonna
get flack for this, but it's a broader sense here where you're trying to make this thing interesting. Otherwise, it's just going to break down into dice rolls.
I would say in that particular example that you gave, if you're requiring them to make certain rolls to escape the situation, and they fail them, you better have sat down and figured out what's going to happen if they do.
That's true.
Because are there escape pods?
That's very true.
Are there vac suits?
Yeah.
Are they? Because obviously you don't want to have a huge TPK, but once they get off, you better know the name of the captain of the ship that's chasing them, because he's going to have them. He's going to be interrogating them pretty soon. Mm-hmm. So you should have, whenever you're requiring people to roll, you better know what's going to happen either way.
Yeah,
and that's important for all games.
There should be a place for them to go. It's like if you jump off your ship, you can't have them floating in space for 6 months.
No, but they're probably going to get captured.
Maybe.
Yes,
and if they get captured, then you better figure out what's going to happen with the story at that point. Now, obviously, not just you need to figure out what's going to happen with the story at that point.
Yeah.
But once they've failed those roles, you better know what direction the story is going to turn at least, and be ready for that.
Yeah.
So that now they're going to have to figure out to take over the ship that they just got captured on, or escape from it at the next starport, or whatever the thing's going to be. But yeah, you can never anticipate success if you're asking for dice rolls, because especially if you're playing.
I also think that again, using the Millennium Falcon escape from the Death Star, that whole scene is very dramatic, and yet Chewie's just keeping the Falcon on a level playing field, and it's all about Han and Luke, and getting the shots off and all that. And we find out later that they were meant to escape; it was too easy. But that still happens in Firefly. I mean, there's a scene in Firefly I remember where they don't have a weapon that works, so they get out, and Jane's got his gun.
Oh yeah,
Vera.
They don't have a gun.
They have Vera, right? They don't have
Vera and in a vac suit.
In a vac suit,
yeah, exactly.
And they make do.
Right.
And how interesting is that? Which is you're on a ship that
has no weapons.
Right, or the weapons are disabled, or they're so out of date you don't have ammo for it, or you couldn't afford ammo, or whatever it is, or you run out. Now they're improvising. And again, it's like you can't be doing a bunch of flying, maneuvering stuff, and it's like with this guy's on a rope on the hull,
or what is it in the film Serenity where what's his name is on top with a
they mounted
a gun on it.
Right. He
finally got a weapon on the ship,
right.
And they took it off afterward.
Right, didn't want it there.
Well, yeah, it's going to cause fights.
And even in Starship Troopers, as flawed as the movie is, these guys are coming in on level things, and the guns are firing, and missiles are going off, but they can't maneuver too much. And even if they can maneuver, it's a long, slow process.
Right.
There's the two ships are trying to, and it's a long, slow process to get them out of the way. So
they're being shot by alien spaceship.
Sure.
Right.
So,
okay, go ahead.
to my mind, you want to encapsulate that broader sense and keep it going, keep the action moving. It's like, oh my God, you've got a hit up in the hull. Engineer, what are you going to do? Roll to patch the. All right, okay. It's still leaking. You might want to see off the bulkhead. Gunners, he's keeping the ship level, but there's some jostling going on. What are you going to do? You get a -1 to hits, and just keep that stuff rolling. So they still have thing to do, but you want to keep it broad and you want to keep it going.
Right.
I think that's exactly the opposite of what he's saying. I'm saying, I think he's saying not to do that because it's kind of like, oh, they're obviously going to shoot at things. Like, have other problems there, like, for them.
Right. Go ahead.
I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you said.
Well, I think the first thing is resist the urge to call for roll for initiative. Just don't have an initiative.
To me is the biggest takeaway from this.
Don't have an initiative order. Don't have combat rounds.
Right.
Don't have everybody gets their own turn type thing.
Okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Right.
You're going to describe this far more narratively.
Yeah.
And I've been in.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I've been in hand-to-hand fights in various games where they were only described narratively and there was no initiative order or anything like that.
Sure.
And it leads to much more cinematic, much more badass things going on. Does everybody get equal time? No. Does everybody get to have a good time?
Everyone has, and maybe everyone has a moment, but not.
Yeah, but probably. Does everybody have a good time? Yeah, probably. So unless you've got that min-maxer who's like, no, I need to absolutely have my 6 seconds at a time where I'm going to do the one thing.
And he's not playing Trout. He's playing D&D.
When I was a new teacher for a while, I was actually working with a group that was designing like a LARP for the classrooms. And it was set up, and it was kind of like Star Trek, where each part of the room was a different part of the ship.
I heard about that.
And so I designed a lot of
Shocked.
it. Not that anybody tells anybody that now, but they showed up in a classroom like, we want to do this. And I was like, great, none of that will work. Here's how that will actually work in a classroom. That's a great idea, but not for kids. And each part of the ship, like they had to do assignments and stuff to get certain numbers of points and things like that to get their part of the ship working. And then each part of the ship did like a roll, I think. I don't remember. It was like 6 or 7 years ago at this point. Their roll was like their roll for the whole combat. So it wasn't like every time they took a shot they rolled. It was like their department got a roll. So I think like you could do it that way, where everyone rolled once, kind of like Wild Talent's the one roll engine, which I love.
Right.
You got to roll, okay, and then you could narratively from there be like, oh, they did really great with the shooting, not so great with engineering, not so great with piloting, and then you could just like, all right, this is what happened in the combat, talk your way, narrate through it, without spending like roll after roll after roll after roll. But it still has that randomizer in there, so you do have the chance of them just flubbing it or just knocking it out of the park.
Right, and random things could still happen. It's like, oh, engineering has actually been compromised. We need to seal off the bulkhead. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. So, and narrowing it down that way.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed about space combat, except for the pilot, everyone is always somewhat reacting in any kind of combat in an RPG. But damage control, medical department, engineering, they're almost exclusively in a reactionary situation. It's very difficult for them to take initiative.
Right, medical is not very proactive.
No, they're waiting for hurt people.
Right. Yeah.
Damage control is waiting for damage.
Right.
Engineering is waiting for someone to tell them what to do.
To put a patch on
right.
Right.
But
to go into the Jeffries tubes.
One of the things, and I think the biggest takeaway for me from this is, and this is a mistake that I think I've made in a lot of space combats, is to do the whole get into the whole initiative trap and go around the table, and you don't have to. I mean, it's mostly the pilot. And if you think about it, and in hindsight, thinking back to an early con game I ran, which was in GURPS Traveler, I think. I made 5 or 6 characters. One of the characters was a pilot. He had almost nothing to do in the entire game because the game was all on planet.
Yeah.
And so you owe it to that guy who took the pilot character or who made the pilot character when there's a combat. That is his fucking chance to shine.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
The face character gets a chance to shine when it's time to talk your way past guards, and the combat monster has his chance to shine when you get to go shoot at people, and the healer has his chance to shine every time someone else gets killed or hurt. But the pilot very rarely gets that chance, and really that's his one time. So having spending more time on that guy or girl, woman in that place.
Good job, Steve. Thank you. High five.
I'm
Person.
old. I'm old, but I'm trying.
You're trying.
But I said, but I don't
People.
consider guy to be a gender.
No, we're from California. Guy is my computer. Guy is my pizza. Guy is you. Guy is
Dude,
me.
yeah, dude, same
My
thing.
guy is my dog, my car. Everything is guy.
There's only one dude, and that's Jeff Bridges.
Fair enough.
The dude abides.
Go ahead.
You're being very non-dude, dude. But I mean, that's his chance to shine, and trying to spread it out, you're kind of robbing him of his spotlight in a way. You know what I'm saying?
We had a rather odd space combat situation in a game I was in. It was a Babylon 5 in the D20 OGL, and we had a technomancer, a whatchamacallit, a psycop, a captain of a Corvette class cruiser, and a lurker who used to be a fighter pilot.
Okay.
Right? So he got his own Star Fury again, but it was like 3 guys up here and 1 guy down here in terms of...
Oh, sure.
Right? And if it's like, if we had been in Down Below in Babylon 5 in the Brown Sector,
yeah.
he would have ruled, except we were never on the space station. But then we get into a combat scene and, I have a fighter jet, essentially, right? I get to do my own thing with this this Star Fury. And the rest of us are on this Corvette-class cruiser, and it's like, did you need any help with those? No? Okay. All right. Because he's got his own, crew.
Right.
The captain has his own crew to deal, an NPC crew to deal with all of the operations of the ship.
Right.
And so it's like he's just barking orders about this, that, and the other. And the Psychop and I are like, did you need any help? Should we go down to the galley? Do you need coffee?
Clearly you have this in control.
Right?
We're going to go play checkers. You want to end?
I'm like, dude, I'm playing a fucking space wizard, and my range is about not as far as in between these ships. Is the point. And all right, I'm just gonna go and take a nap.
I kind of brought this up last time, but it bears bringing up again, I guess, which is if you extrapolate the fact that it's not space combat, maybe it's submarine combat, maybe
yeah.
it's ship combat,
Sure.
maybe it's a chase in cars.
Oh, yeah.
How do you handle those? Are they different than space combat?
No.
And
I
are
think
there
so.
systems out there that deal with that really well? Because maybe you can take some clues from a ship combat game and extrapolate that to a space combat game.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that there's solutions out there for making a group ship combat interesting, because certainly there's naval games and there's stuff that people have written and worked out. I'm not sure that there is. I think sometimes you just think it's a spaceship, so you forget to look outside of that.
Sure.
It's a chase game. It's a submarine game. It's the same rules. I mean, if you ever watch the original Star Trek, even most of them, really, it's a submarine game. I mean, every time they get hit, they start losing oxygen, and people are hurt, and they're sinking. It's very much right. It's very much they're getting depth charges. It's very much that going on, and the tension builds up from that. But I wonder if there are other games that you can take clues from that can solve your problem for you.
Yeah, I think submarine combat is actually the best analogy because if you're on say the pirate game that we were doing, we can see the other ship, right?
Yes.
We can board the other ship. But submarines and spaceships, you can't see the other ship. You're working from sensors. You're working from sonar. You can't look outside to see the other ship. Even the view screen that's a camera and a television at best. But realistically, that ship is kilometers away, right? So submarine combat is actually probably the best analogy of you need to acquire the target because we can't see it.
Right.
The sonar operator needs to acquire the target because we can't see it. The dive planes officer needs to control.
But
where
how do
we
you
are.
make that interesting rather than just a bunch of dice rolls? And that's my point.
I don't know if you need to make it short.
Yeah.
Make
Keep it short. Yeah.
Well said. Well said.
One roll
Make it
engine.
short.
Because really,
move on.
a lot of those things are decided by one shot.
One roll engine.
A lot of those things are decided by one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, there's a series of novels. I don't remember the author. It's called the Lost Fleet series. It's reasonably hard science fiction, and the guy who wrote them was like a Navy Commodore or something like that. So he's taken his knowledge of naval fleet tactics and applied it to space combat, and he's done a really good job. What the space combats are. First off, they're these fleets are showing up on opposite ends of solar systems.
Right. Yeah.
So there's days that are going to go by before
least,
they
yeah.
they do anything. Well, they're moving at
Yeah.
0.2, 0.3 light.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Yeah.
Honor Harrington deals with that a lot too. They know they're coming. It's hours or days before they can.
And they will change the configuration of the fleet as
Right.
they're approaching. And these
Right.
are big fleets. These
Right.
are like,
Yeah.
a
It's
lot
like-
of
it's like-
battleships and a lot of.
It's like entire armies.
Yeah.
And it's very much again like battleships in the Pacific. It's like you could you could see the enemy coming. You know they're coming, and you configure your fleet, and then it's just a matter of
his fleet. The main character's fleet in this thing is literally hundreds of ships, and you're talking. You've got picket ships with the destroyers and whatever the frigates or whatever they are, and as they move closer, at the last minute they start doing maneuvers to try to take advantage of the weakness of the other formation, but it's over in a flash because they're both moving at 0.2 C.
The O'Brien series, the Master and Commander series.
Oh yeah,
the books.
Right.
Are very similar to that because there's a scene where they're in a fight. They've got 22 ships versus the French have 4.
Right.
Should be easy, right? Except that 21 of their 22 ships are merchantmen.
right.
Oops.
Have like one cannon.
No. They all have cannon, but they don't have
the crew.
crews that know how to use them.
Or not how to use them well.
And they're not good cannon, right?
Right.
Their range sucks,
Right.
and everything like that. So it's entirely about at the last minute, and he goes into great detail describing those maneuvers that they use to surround the French ships.
I don't wanna
and
play
cut
that
them
game.
off. Well, if you don't, then okay,
That's
fine,
a
don't sign up for
miniatures
that.
game at that point.
But
You're moving things
the
around.
whole
on
point
board.
was it's the prep that led up to
Yeah.
that one moment of resolution, and once that
Exactly.
resolution
Yes.
happened, that battle's over.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
I think-
exactly right.
I think it was the pirate splat book for Pathfinder. I don't remember what it was called, but
Tyler ran it?
Tyler ran it for us at one point, and it had different combat rules for ships.
Yeah.
It was a miniatures game. Like
Yeah.
you switched to like a miniatures game, which was pretty interesting and
Right.
fascinating. I mean, for that game, it fit really well because you're pirate ships and you're doing like naval combat. I don't know. That might be another place to look if you're not into like just one role and like narrating it out. That might be an interesting place to look too, to switch to something like that.
Our D&D game recently, the GM brought in I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the game, but he brought in a board game. He was essentially we were having the Battle of the Five Armies kind of situation, right?
Which was narrated, by the way.
I'm not going to get started on that.
Not
fine.
the point. But we essentially that night, instead of playing D&D, we played this board game.
Yeah.
But we did keep some of our character personalities involved when we were like, okay, this army has to go over here, and this army has to go over here, and this whatever has to go this way, and it was all within the mechanics that the board game provided,
neat.
which was completely different from D&D.
Because you're role players. Shit, you guys can role play Monopoly.
Oh, damn straight, yeah. Sure. But and it worked to have this concept of a massive world-affecting battle that we were a part of, and we benefited from or took consequence from, as case may be. But it was a break from what we had been doing, and it was a way of just addressing this mass combat concept that a lot of RPGs I've seen include supplementary rules for mass combat.
Sure. Yeah.
D&D has it. Vampire has it. GURPS has it. Yeah. But they all fail in some respect or another because they're still based on the same mechanics of the individual game.
Well, some of them aren't.
Right.
some of them.
But if you move to a completely different game that's actually designed around this, and you just keep your characters' personalities in that, you can still make that happen.
Yeah, I've heard of people doing that, like playing FFG and then switching to X-Wing for battles and stuff, and then switching back to the FFG system.
Not a long game session though.
It can be. And
Yeah, it can be.
And you suddenly lose, interest in what your character's
And
doing.
you do run into certain risks. You do run into certain risks because our GM sprung this on us. We had no idea it was going to happen, and because he didn't tell us about that this was going to happen. Personally, I love board games. I freaking love them. Mary fucking despises board games.
Yes, I'm not a big fan of board games.
And
myself.
so when he showed up with a board game, she was like,
Oh, no.
God damn me.
5 hours of agony.
Yeah, it's like
I'm going to knit.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was making chainmail. But yes,
angry knitting.
She participated, but it was for her. It was a lost night.
Yeah,
Pulling
I would've-
teeth.
yeah, I would have not been super happy.
This has been in the same solutions we gave you, I think, with the original email, too. But I really like your one-roll solution, Stu and Kimmy.
Me.
Which is basically keep it short.
Yeah.
It's okay. We look a lot like people get us confused.
No, you made the one roll, and he said keep it short. I was trying to include both of you.
Yeah.
I did start with him.
I
It was
think
your
all
roll.
combat should be short.
Yes.
Every one of them.
There it is.
All right.
We haven't had a single D&D combat go more than 4 rounds in our game.
What level are you at?
4. No,
Are you terrible? Do you all die every time?
no.
What level are you at?
At this point, we just made 8.
Kimmy, they just they
wow.
actually make their rolls.
We have not-
like you and I do, where
Well,
that's what drags
but also,
combat on.
again,
That's a mistake.
I
Yeah,
said
I know.
this goes back to
You're kicking the shit out of kobolds, probably.
no. But also, again,
Are
we're
you
not
ever in danger?
rarely because the first thing that we do, like I said, the bard and the sorcerer
They make
start
everybody.
Oh, that's
friends.
right. Yeah.
convert half the army of the
Everyone
other
gets
side.
traded.
Demoralize everyone, and the other one converts them. So
Right,
it's great,
exactly.
yeah.
So it's just like, no, they're all friendos now. And
All right.
so we got stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Go.
Do the thing.
Well, we've got the convention coming up.
Right.
in
We
2
talked
weeks.
about that, yeah.
Right. For those of you who are in the Southern California area, Sport of Tricks is, oh my God, busy.
Wait, who's Sport of Tricks?
Yes.
No, who
is
Sport of
Tricks?
Sport of Tricks is the band I'm in. Sport of Tricks is sort of the third part of the triumvirate of the Boggards, the Wives, and the Tricks.
Oh, my.
And yeah, exactly right. We've had some really awesome shows recently on St. Paddy's Day together. So we have gigs coming up next weekend. We have 2 gigs in San Diego. Playing with a local band called the Downs Family at a place called the Black Cat in San Diego on Saturday the 25th. On Sunday the 26th, we're playing aboard the Star of India at the San Diego Maritime Museum
Very
as part
cool.
of the Sea Shanty Festival.
Very cool.
So come out and see us there. That's at
cool.
1 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday the 26th. So that's this month. Next month, September 9th, the weekend after Strategicon, we're back down at our favorite place, Muldoon's, down in Newport Beach.
Nice.
On
Your
that
semi-regular
Sunday,
gig.
Our semi-regular gig.
Where can people find all these if they don't remember?
Right,
that?
that's what I was going to go.
Sportivetricks.com.
All right.
SPORTIVE tricks.com. See?
And you guys play the folk and the Irish music, right?
Folk and Irish music, yes, and with it's we call it Celtic with a kick.
I've heard of
They
it.
play both
So-
kinds of
and then
music.
and then
What?
Country and Western.
and then in October we'll be in Vegas.
Vegas.
Tejas.
Yes.
Viva Las Vegas.
For the Age of Chivalry Renaissance Festival out there. Yeah,
Nice.
We're
Renaissance.
thinking about doing that next year.
it's a very different fair, but it's a lot of fun.
Goes
It's like a cross
runs
between-
at night too, right?
It runs
till
till 10 o'clock at night. It runs 3 days. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
It's all
And-
indoors.
No, it's all outdoors.
No,
Oh, is it?
It's at a park, just on the other side of
They
McCarran
have
Airport.
parks in Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Other side of
Weird.
McCarran Airport.
Bizarre.
Well,
Never been
it's
outside.
the front lawn of a hotel.
Oh,
No.
okay.
It's a fairly large. It's sort of half Ren Fair, half swap meet, half SCA event.
Okay.
Society for Creative Anachronism event. So it's a very different style of fair than what we're used to for going to Southern California,
Right.
Southern California Renaissance Culture Fair.
Yes.
So
We have a bunch of other stuff coming up too. We have a bunch of APs coming up this week. We are off Wednesday this week. There will not be a game this Wednesday.
There might actually be a game on Sunday either.
Yeah, there's no game on Sunday either this week.
Oh, you checked?
You told me no.
Okay. All right. No.
I did check with you, and you said
All right.
no. Check the schedule, happyjacks.org/schedule. It will be updated with whatever the correct information is as of now.
I actually checked the schedule, and I couldn't make it work. And I actually brought it up with Kimmy. So if you guys are having problems with the schedule, we are looking into it because I couldn't make it work.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I got it to work fine.
All right.
You're
On
better.
the
You're
same
smarter
day.
than I am.
Same day.
So we're
smarter
going
than
to
I
go
am.
now.
Hey, Stork,
Yeah?
are you still using the TRS 80?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you upgraded to a Wang.
It's an Atari. It's an Atari. You only go with
400 or
Atari.
800?
Atari's awesome. 800.
I've lost control again. I'm sorry, everyone. I
Did you
tried.
ever have it?
All right.
No, I tried to use digital
Thank you for joining us for season 22, episode 12, Happy Jacks RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
My name is Kimmy.
My name's Stork.
I'm Kurt.
And we'll see you next week, Friday, and APs and stuff. HappyJacks.org/schedule, which is working fine.
Okay. All right.
Except on TRS 80s and
Atari.
Atari 400.
Yeah. 800.
800, sorry. Maybe not the 1200 either. It may also not work on the Amiga.
I'm really stressed about it.
I should
Oh
bring
my
up
God, we're done.
Thank you very much for the song. Oh, and the song is from Star Trek 6. And that's it. And I'm going to turn off the mics.
I'm about to be eaten by a groove.
Hero Pathfinder, fatal savage world. Evil plots will be usurping. Though we could do with less burping. Happy Jack's podcast will be douchebags all.
Well, my father often told me when I was just a lad, a sailor's life was very hard, the food was always bad. But now I've joined the Navy, I'm aboard a man of war, and now I know a sailor's not a sailor anymore. Don't haul on the rope, don't climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last. So get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore.
Well, the Killick of our mess, he says we have it soft. It wasn't like this in his day when he was up aloft. We like our bunks and sleeping bags, but what's a hammock for? Swinging from the deckhead or lying on the floor. Don't
haul on the rope,
don't
climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last.
So
get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore.
Well, they gave us an engine that first went up and down. Then with more technology, the engine went around. We know our steam and diesel, but what's the main unit for? A stoker ain't a stoker with a shovel anymore. Don't
haul on the rope,
don't
climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last.
So
get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore. Well, they gave us an Aldous lamp so we could do it right. They gave us a radio, we signal day and night. We know our codes and ciphers, but what's a semaphore? A bunting tosser doesn't toss the bunting anymore. Don't haul on the rope, don't climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last.
So
get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore. Well, they gave us a radar set to pierce the fog and gloom. So now the lookout's sitting in a tiny darkened room. Lauren does navigation, the sonar says how deep. The Jimmy's 3 sheets to the wind, the skipper's fast asleep. Don't haul on the rope, don't climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last.
So
get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore.
GPS is by the far, weather patch to the right. My cell phone lets the skipper check his Facebook every night. The DJ's playing rock and pop, but what's the sea shanty? No one wants the scrim show when there's satellite TV. Don't
haul on the rope,
don't
climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last.
So
get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore. 2 cans of beer a day, and that's your bleeding lot. But now we get an extra one because we stopped the talk. So we'll put on our city clothes and find a pub ashore. A sailor's still a sailor, just like he was before. Don't haul on the rope, don't climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last. So get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore. Don't haul on the rope, don't climb up the mast. If you see a sailing ship, it might be your last. So get your civvies ready for another run ashore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore. A sailor ain't a sailor, ain't a sailor anymore.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Bum, 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 bum.